So on the very cusp of the hotbed of science fiction in the 90s, one film came out and absolutely terrified audiences, with its fairly loosely based take on the most famous alien abduction stories ever told. This is Fire in the Sky. On November 5th, 1975, logger Travis Walton and his co-workers encountered a UFO in the White Mountains of Arizona. While the rest of the crew cowered in disbelief, Walton proceeded to examine the craft in awe, but was soon struck by a powerful beam of light that seemed to have killed him. While his friends and co-workers ran in fear, his best friend Mike Rogers returned to the site to find no sign of Travis. They soon attempt to report the incident to Sheriff Blake and Special Investigator Frank Waters, but the scrutiny of his extraordinary tale finds little credibility with them or the townsfolk. As everyone searches the woods for signs of Travis, suspicion turns to lies and murder against Mike and his crew. Even the drifter Dalsh, who only recently joined them, proves to be harder to wrangle due to his adversarial attitude and brief criminal history. And even with the entire crew submitting to a lie detector test, it doesn't absolve them due to inconclusive results. The contempt and ridicule of the town presses hardest on Mike, who chooses to confront them for betraying the trust he instilled in them. Losing friends and their logging contract, the weight of the truth weighs upon everyone, until a muttered phone call to Mike reveals that Travis is alive. He is soon found traumatized and near unresponsive at a gas station, where Mike invites UFO researchers to attempt to interview him. Yet what the once bright and exuberant young man experienced for the last 5 days will cause further ruptures and speculation, claiming he had been taken and experimented on by beings not of this world. So March 12, 1993 saw the release of Fire in the Sky into theaters, and really wasn't destined to become a box office hit because of a $50 million budget, grossed just over $19 million, and upon its opening weekend, it had to do battle with what Wikipedia lists as the storm of the century, a cyclonic storm that originated in the Gulf of Mexico and eventually stretched from Canada down to Honduras and pretty much knocked out the entire eastern United States from really going out and having much of a weekend. It lasts from the 12th to the 15th, basically kicking out the entire opening weekend and pretty much diminishing its box office returns in that regard. But it's such an interesting thing in how all this stuff came together with the entire film, because obviously the whole thing happened, well, the accounts with Travis Walton happened, and they eventually published a book called The Walton Experience in 1978. Obviously eventually gets optioned by Paramount Pictures here, and the entire thing was very kind of contentious with Walton. He's been very critical about the film after all these years, because a lot of the stuff he had in the book and stuff he says happened really didn't entirely translate into the film. Stuff like there was originally like 7 loggers, they kind of narrowed it down to 6 and fictionalized a lot of different elements that happened in the original life into the film. And because the entire thing that actually gets depicted on the alien spacecraft in Fire in the Sky is not at all what Travis Walton claims happened to him. So he's been very critical about the whole thing, but there's the whole thing where screenwriter Tracy Torme, guy who worked on Star Trek The Next Generation, was just about to create the entire series Sliders with Jerry O'Connell, felt like a lot of the elements of Travis Walton's experience and stuff like that really wasn't exciting for a feature film. So he had to fictionalize things and make it more dramatic, more cinematic, more interesting, more intense in type of way. And they latched on director Robert Lieberman, who was just kind of a regular working director. Nothing too notable in his career before this. Done a lot of TV, a couple minor feature films, but eventually would go on to do the third Mighty Ducks film, and actually did an episode of The X-Files later on in his career. But kind of the whole thing was like they got together and they were really working together very much on this for like a year or so. Trying to hash out the ideas, trying to figure out how to land the story, and very much wanted to focus very much in on the sort of human element of the story. Deal with Mike Rogers and all those loggers who had to deal with the entire disappearance of Travis Walton over the course of those 5 days. And go through the emotional experience and the whole things going on, which is a human condition. Which is very much good writing, just good writing on itself, but also kind of gets to the core of science fiction. No, it doesn't always have to be constant science fiction elements, science fiction does challenge the human condition and goes towards philosophies and different things, socio-political type of things here and there. It addresses certain things through science fiction to give a commentary on certain things. And just go through very good storytelling on this whole thing to really show off a lot of good qualities of what Fire in the Sky really came out to be here. And Robert Lieberman, just like, even though he wasn't, like I said, not much of a notable director in any type of way, he really shows a lot of skills in this whole thing. It's like, even though regular TV guys, TV writer, TV director, they really show a lot of cinematic style in this whole thing. They know their stuff. They know how to make the entire film feel emotional, grounded, dramatic, but also have a very cinematic sensibility in how to capture these stories, capture these characters, and have such things project out through the visual medium that you have here on a large screen. And one of the best tools they employed on this film to achieve that was getting cinematographer Bill Pope, who's one of the best in the field. The guy who shot Darkman, Army of Darkness, Bound, Zero Effect, the first 3 Matrix films, Spider-Man 2 and 3, as well as recently Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This guy's fantastic. Brilliant type of stuff he's done throughout his career. Even shot the Michalak music video for One. This guy's fantastic. And just like there is such a great, just a synergy overall in terms of the tone they're trying to go for here, in terms of Lieberman's approach to the drama and the characters, all that type of stuff, to make a very grounded, authentic feel for everyone. Everyone just feels like they have dimension and depth, and there's a very much a sensibility of just everything being real here. Everyone's got a certain quality about them in terms of the characters portrayed here, in terms of the direction involved, and certainly how Bill Pope photographs this thing, just like maintaining a very realistic sensibility, but still tapping into subtle moods here and there. Little things where they kind of use a little bit of gel in certain places, or just something like Early Morning Glow, where you got the guys in the diner there after Noble Willingham's character of Blake and James Garner's character of Waters are coming in there and having this sort of talk, whatnot. It's like this beautiful lighting, this subtle glow in a certain way. It just gives a certain mood and ambiance to everything. It's not standout, just like amazing type of stuff. It's like it's so very smartly crafted how the entire film is photographed. Just like when you get a lot of the landscapes in this whole thing, where they're showing out in the forestry, got all this wonderful haze and light and smoke and stuff like that. Everything just glows throughout everything else here, and we get some really great vistas overall when you see the bright blue skies and all this type of stuff. They really knew how to use the environments they're working in to make it look absolutely phenomenal, and just like making use of that type of stuff, and just something that's mainly just a drama. Character-driven drama here, but you can create such beautiful imagery to evoke moods, evoke emotions, all these different things. And certainly when the thing gets into suspenseful sequences, it absolutely looks beyond incredible in so many different ways, but just focusing in on the direction here. Building up the community here, this small town, just like everyone just feels like they have a realistic texture to them. You don't even have to spend a lot of time with people. It just feels like how the direction is put together in the whole film, very well cast on all different levels, between people just have bits parts or people just there in like the town hall or stuff like that. It just creates an overall sensibility of just like a realism to everything that's happening here with these characters, with relationships, all the different things, people speaking out, people acting in fear, and all these different things, just like all the town chatter, all the different things. It feels very authentic to what you would imagine that sort of situation would be. The whole thing of like these guys went off the woods and killed their best friend or something like that. There's like so much suspicion and paranoia about the whole thing. Just like it's such a great way of how all this stuff is melded out through the entire film here, in terms of just like making a very consistent sensibility about progressing that the entire story here. I think it comes out so well, and just how Robert Lieberman pulls all those elements together with such a great cast involved in this whole film. He does a stellar job with it. And the whole thing with getting someone like Robert Patrick here was like, he had a little bit part in Die Hard 2 as one of the henchmen. Then he goes off and does T2 and becomes a recognizable star in that regard. But he's like, man, I don't want to do those types of films. I don't want to be picked as the T-1000 right off the gate here. He was doing different things. He put on extra weight. He grew his hair differently. He just wanted to remove that visage from his auditions, the casting calls, the headshots, all that type of stuff. I try to go for just more different types of roles here. So I've seen some of the stuff he did at the time, where it's like some pretty low-budget dramas that probably hit up mostly on cable or direct-to-video type of stuff, but they were fairly good. But he was always good in the stuff. He's always been good in stuff. But there's such a great role for him to really grasp onto, because I think it's actually one of his best performances I've ever seen from him. He's incredible through this entire course of this movie. Bodying Mike Rogers here, guy's very pragmatic, very kind of down-to-earth type of guy. When you reflect him off of Travis in the whole film, he's this aspirational dreamer. He's all excited. He's got stars in his eyes, stuff like that. Mike's this guy's like, he's dealing with his family, he's dealing with his wife, all these different things. I got a mortgage to deal with. I got to finish this logging contract to make sure everything's maintained stable for my family. Then I can maybe kind of entertain all these sort of starry ideas that Travis has about doing motorbike store or shop or something like that. These different things, you can see that sensibility. One guy's very grounded in the reality of what he's into right now, what his responsibilities are. Some minor rocky things are probably going on with the marriage here and there that can continue to happen throughout the entire course of the film. And you just see how Robert Patrick brings so much gravity to everything. But Robert Patrick, like I said, was kind of like, at this point in time in his career, is a little uncertain where his trajectory of his career is going to go, what kind of roles he wants to go for, what he really wants to do, and really find his footing. So even he felt like it kind of helped the character a little bit, because you got this character who's like committed to the truth of what happened. It's telling everyone the exact same story over and over again, but no one wants to hear it. No one wants to believe them. No one wants to extend any trust to them because it sounds preposterous. But so he's got this sort of things like he knows where he stands, but he doesn't know where to go with it. No one else really wants to extend that hand and kind of trust them in a certain way. So it's like he's fighting against all this type of stuff where people think he's a murderer or a liar or stuff like that. So it works for the performance where he's not entirely certain exactly where he's going to land in the eyes of everyone else around him. And James Garner was very instrumental in just improving what Robert Patrick was doing on the films. Like, he coached him a little bit, like, don't turn away from the camera, use the camera, turn into the camera. Use that as a tool to project yourself onto things. Just kind of worked on the camera technique to just show your performance out to the screen here so people can feel what you're doing on the screen. All these different things. So it's like, a lot of these great things just work so much because he's just an empathetic actor in this whole film. Just the emotion is all over his face the entire film. Just like the worry, the heartbreak, the sensibility that he loses a lot of faith in these people. It's like he trusted all these people and he grew up around these people. He knew these people. And now there's all this betrayal of trust and all this type of stuff. So it's like you just feel that sensibility, that pain from within the character out through the surface of him. Patrick does an amazing job in this film. He's absolutely incredible. Just like, I think he's just doing some of the best work he's ever done. He's probably done even better stuff than this, but it's like every time I see this, like, he does an amazing job. Such a great job. All these qualities he puts through in the whole film that goes through different waves on all these different things. Just like this interesting arc the character goes on through the entire film, and Patrick's on top of it 100% of the time. I love everything he's putting forth in the film. He feels absolutely natural as a leading actor. He carries all the things he has to carry in this film magnificently with such a great ensemble around him. He does amazing work. You got guys like Peter Berg in this whole thing and Henry Thomas just adding so much more to that entire group of the loggers there, kind of dealing with this entire situation here. But I really like Craig Sheffer. God, that guy's good. Again, I just think, I've seen Craig Sheffer in some of those kind of lower budget sort of dimension films, horror films like Hellraiser, Inferno, and like Dracula 2 Ascension, or what the hell it is. This one's got some meat for him. And he puts forth an amazing performance in the whole film, and he apparently had a little problems on set. He would show up late every single day, and Robert Lieberman was kind of like, it's kind of his character. If he's going a little bit method with things, I'm fine with it. Let's leave it there. If he's going to be a little late, but apparently on one of the days, he showed up late when they like to have this great, perfect outdoor lighting. The sun's in the right place, everything's going all right. We could shoot right now if the guy was actually here. And Lieberman just like, he pounded on his trailer door and confronted him and got him riled up and stuff like that. When Sheffer then went off and confronted him, like, what the fuck you doing to me on this day? Because it was like one of the big scenes where Peter Berg's character and Robert Patrick's character are going to him from the lie detector test you're going to take. It's like, use that anger. Use that frustration. You hate me? Use that in the scene. And it actually works so well. It's just like everything he does through the entire course of the film, it adds that sense of tension. That little bit of the wild card in the whole thing. He's a drifter. He's always been in town for a couple of weeks. He's only been in the logging crew for about 2 or 3. So it's like he's not really a known quantity amongst these guys. So there's a little bit of a thing out there that be a little bit of a loose cannon. So it's like they can't really rely on the guy because he's got no loyalty to anyone. He's been playing a little adversarial with guys like Travis. So it's like he's just not the best guy to be around, but he creates that drama for the entire film to really have something to go off of, to have a little friction here and there to kind of deal with things. So it's like, he puts on a fantastic performance. I love everything he does in the whole film. He's absolutely wonderful. Began with D.B. Sweeney. Like I said, another guy's great. And this guy was so enthusiastic with so many things on the film. He was just like on it, 100 goddamn percent. And he actually took the role of Travis Walton here because he knew he'd be on all the wires and stuff like that, doing stuff with industrial light and magic and doing all the stunt work on the entire spaceship sequence, all the type of stuff. Because he was a big Spider-Man fan, and James Cameron had the rights to producing Spider-Man in the mid-90s. He thought, well, if I get on this thing and show industrial light and magic, I could do all the wire work really goddamn good, and they'll talk to James Cameron, and they'll say, oh, this guy's really good at this type of stuff, cast him. Obviously, that never happened. That kind of washed away and reverted back to Sony and stuff like that. But Sweeney's great. He's absolutely great in this whole role, just like he brings so much from the beginning of the film when they're recounting who Travis Walton is, Mike Rogers' best friend, all these different things. Again, that dreamy, aspirational type of guy is so sweet and endearing. He's just such a bright, optimistic personality at the beginning of the film. He's just seeing all the things. He just looks like almost like this Norman Rockwell type of guy. It's like he's just so much that perfect Americana, American dream spirit type of guy. But then you get just everything when it comes back around at the back end of the film. After he comes back, just like he does an incredible job showing the shaken, rattled trauma of the entire character after he's come back from this experience. Just like it's horrifying what he does just in the performance alone, not showing anything else. Just showing that the psyche is all fractured and he's just all fucked up and all this different stuff is fantastic at just portraying that, just ejecting all this shaken intensity into the entire film, right when the film really needs that escalation up to the entire brilliant sequence I'm going to get to later on. But just like everything he does is 100 goddamn percent on the money, and it's absolutely fantastic what he does here. And of course, like I said, James Garner, just a screen legend. All this type of stuff, Rockford Files and all the films he ever did. He was an amazing actor. And just like he adds so much that, again, authenticity, that texture, that gravity, all the type of stuff that he has to go for in this whole thing with Frank Waters, going very even-handedly through the entire investigation, knowing when things aren't fitting in right, when things are a little bit of a nagging type of thing. And I like as the film progresses, I guess at a certain point where it's like, okay, he takes Mike Rogers of the diner, it's like, got this nagging feeling like I don't believe you killed your friend. But I feel like you're still holding something back. You're still covering something up. So it's like, I like the intelligence of the investigative stuff. I like that type of thing where he's just wheels are turning inside the head, and Garner portrays it so very well. Just like such a great, solid hand here, just further heightened and reinforced. We got Noble Willingham there as Blake, the sheriff of the entire town. Great actor as well. Just like it brings that southern, rustic type of feel to everything. Just like great sensibility about him. All of these guys involved the entire film. Just like every single person that's up on the screen is perfectly cast. Does such a great job to inhabit layered, dimensional people on screen. Robert Lieberman's direction can't be denied here. Just getting great performances for every single person, rating them in the right ways that grab the emotions of the story here, projected on the screen. Does such a great job to weave all these characters together, put together a very solid piece of work here, and just have everything come out so extremely well in that front. And just enhancing the drama of this film so very much is a score from Mark Isham, who had done The Hitcher, Point Break, Kiss the Girls, Time Cop, Blade, a lot of good films, doing a lot of good work. Done a lot of electronic stuff, but originally kind of just moved over a little bit more into the orchestral stuff, so starting to mix the different things together and creating some very interesting type of stuff here, and does a really good job in this whole film. And La La Land Records recently did, in March 2022, release a complete version of the entire soundtrack. And so that was a very good type of thing ahead of the new Screen Factory Blu-ray release to again get the entire package of the entire film. And everything he does here just really kind of brings that realism, that sensibility of the heart and the grounded sensibilities, but also still maintaining a little mystique here and there, just a little bit of that mood and atmosphere in certain places where the entire film really needed. Just like there's so many different things, especially when the film needs to get suspenseful. I think so much the sound of the film comes through and just enhances, amplifies what Lieberman is doing as director here. Just like all the stuff with the score just like it tenses up the entire thing. When Travis goes out in the clearing and the light hits him, all the type of stuff, just nerve-wracking type of stuff. How the sound, all the entire music is really ratcheting things up so very well in that entire regard. And just like everything just builds up so very well in that regard, but still maintains the human element of the story going through everything like that. So I think there's not like a lot of things that really stand out in just terms of like a musical tapestry in a certain way, but it does what the score needs to do, and that's bring all the emotional elements further up towards the audience to feel much more strongly, and does a great job in that regard. But when you get this entire story where everyone is recounting the story, what happened, getting the scrutiny and the criticism, all the side glances, all the different weird things going on, and you got all the things happening where Mike Rogers is kind of like battling with the town and all these different things, trying to stand up and then just kind of like, stop talking behind my back, stop doing all this stuff. If you got something to say it to my face. And all these things building up in that regard, all the emotional human elements in the entire film, just grabbing all those different types of qualities that you really want to have a compelling, riveting narrative. So you got all the great human building type of stuff, all those elements, making a very compelling narrative here. I like so much where that all goes. It's not all based on just science fiction. It's down to the humanity of the entire story. Believing people and seeing the betrayal and the trust and the deception, all these different things going on. No one really trusting anyone anywhere. And you still have good characters at the head of this whole thing, portrayed by wonderful actors. All the different qualities here, but it all comes to a head when Travis Walton comes back. And you got D.B. Sweeney here doing all that sort of PTSD type of stuff. He just kind of just fractured psyche, like I said. When you finally get that flashback sequence, holy fucking shit. Just like watching it again. Every time I see this film, that entire sequence aboard the spacecraft scares the living shit out of me. It is one of the most terrifying, horrifying sequences I've ever seen in any film ever. Because it's crafted so absolutely brilliantly. Starting out with industrial light and magic here. It was a very interesting type of thing. Because this is 1993, about 3 months before the release of Jurassic Park, so a lot of ILM's people are dealing with Steven Spielberg stuff right now. They ain't got time for much of anything else now. They got all the digital stuff going on, groundbreaking, revolutionary CGI stuff going on, doing all that type of stuff. And so they had a much smaller crew dealing with this, but they got the right people involved to have the right sensibilities. Like Michael Owens on this entire thing wasn't really just so much about visual effects, he was about storytelling. Okay, we have to use the tools to tell the right story. So he's very much focused on making the right tools for the right job. Use the right effects to tell the story that we need to. And so everything was done practically. There's almost no visual effects. It's all special effects. You've got the animatronics. You've got the fantastic sets. All these different pieces of wire work in the whole thing. It's all done so much in camera and on set. It's fantastic. It's brilliant type of stuff. Just like the freaking aliens they design here are kind of a stroke of genius. Because they intentionally designed it well before CGI really could step in and really do that stuff wholeheartedly. Designed something that you couldn't just put a person in a suit. So it's not like you just put on the suit like it's Alien or Predator or something else like that. Then something that had to be very much gangly in a certain way to kind of do it animatronically. There were a few shots where they got like little ballerinas to kind of go on and just do some things where they didn't have to have them directly on screen, but kind of like in the background or stuff like that, when they're kind of like dragging Travis down the hallway. But a lot of it was just like all these puppeteers with all the different things, kind of working the eyelids and the hands, the fingers and the eyes and all that type of stuff. Everything. Old school animatronic type of stuff, which is absolutely fabulous because it holds up. Holds up absolutely perfectly after almost 30 years now. Thing absolutely looks fantastic, and everything that's done here, constructing that full-size set, all this, there's no miniatures. They constructed the entire set full scale, and D.B. Sweeney was absolutely just like, again, completely on board with anything they wanted to do. He took to the wires like a goddamn pro. He was willing to do as many takes as possible. I think they were shooting this sequence for like 2 weeks, just straight through. And so, like, he was hanging on wires for the majority of the whole thing. Then he has to go in the entire thing where they lay him on the slab with the vacuum form stuff. and cover his face and all these different things, and all that, just the abject terror that he portrays in this sequence is just beyond words. When he's strapped down on the table and the entire thing is coming down on his eye, it's like, I've never seen anything more horrifying in a goddamn film, because the filmmaking skills are on the absolute top edge of everything I've ever seen. Everything, because you got Bill Pope working on the photography of the entire thing. Robert Lieberman's there directing the whole thing as well. Everything was come together through Robert Lieberman, Tracy Torme, and the ILM guys who create the entire narrative for this entire sequence here. They constructed all by themselves here. Again, departing completely from Walton's story here. They're just like, oh, that's the story the account he has. It doesn't work for the cinematic medium to make it riveting and compelling, and just what they wanted to make was a bit of a horrifying sequence, and just did it in spades. Everything they did here, just like all the stuff with the weird membranes, just like everything just looks so absolutely alien. It doesn't look like anything else you've ever seen. It's so much different from everything else you've ever experienced in the film. The design of everything, the scale, the sets, all these different things. It's very much kind of like on that Ridley Scott Alien level, where like they sought out something so different in a certain way and put so much into the production values and the art direction, all these different things to make it look absolutely just on the top game of everything. It just looks absolutely phenomenal. Just like everything goes off and just twisted around with just the most heart-pounding sequence you probably have ever seen in a film. Just like, it just blows me away every single time. Everything that goes into that whole sequence, it's just a master stroke. The quality of everything ILM is doing, Bill Pope just photographing it with such a stark, moody sensibility of the whole thing. Just like everything they've done, the very muted colors here. They don't go anything vibrant whatsoever. It's all very, very earthy to a certain degree. Very brown, a little dingy, stuff like that. Just like it doesn't pop out on the screen. It very much evokes something very organic, very dark, very mysterious in a certain way. Everything put into that sequence, just absolutely just like you couldn't ask for anything better. You can't improve it. The only digital stuff they did was painting out the wires on D.B. Sweeney. That's basically it. There's maybe like one other piece of effects work they did somewhere in the whole thing where like the keys floating around and stuff like that. But basically, you're not doing anything on a green screen in this whole film. It's all just done practically on a real set, and it looks absolutely timeless and magnificent. And just like this entire sequence has stuck with me since day one. It's just heart-pounding and just chilling and just incredible. After that sequence is done, you're just going, your heart is still pounding all the way through the end credits. And just insane. Just an insane piece of filmmaking brilliance in my regard. Everyone involved, the direction, the cinematography, the sound, the music in the entire sequence is so absolutely haunting and just amazing. Everything's amazing. It's so incredible how all this stuff pulled together and just made such an amazing type of thing. And how the film ends is also interesting because you do have to resolve the human element. You've done the horror stuff, you built up, you paid that off so brilliantly, but you still have to go off and still tie things up with the human element here. So you move forward a little bit in the story. Now Travis, portrayed by D.B. Sweeney, he's got a family. Things are good. Things are very well adjusted for him. But the thing with Mike fell out. Mike apparently, like, he's not in with his wife anymore. They probably divorced and stuff like that. And he's living up in the mountains somewhere with a freaking beard and all that type of stuff. So like, he's been disconnected from everything he ever cared about in his life because everything went haywire. Everything went haywire with the townsfolk. Everything went haywire with Travis. They both accused each other back and forth and broke the relationship. So I just like how they tie the story in that regard. Like, he goes to Mike and they kind of bend the things and like they forgive each other and move forward. So it's like a nice type of thing. How they did that in the film, I don't know quite as much how everything worked out in real life. I think so because I believe on CNN on the day the film was released, I think Mike Rogers and Travis Walton and a few other people appeared on CNN. They have a little bit of an interview about what happened. So I think there's a little still amending on the ways there to keep things going. And Robert Patrick actually did meet with Mike Rogers. He actually, when he was mulling over this entire screenplay, but whether or not he was going to actually commit to the entire film, he actually drove over to Snowflake, Arizona. He did talk to him in regards to how he felt about this situation when it went down and trying to integrate that into his character, his performance, all that type of stuff. So it's like such an interesting type of way, just how the film approached it. Because Robert Lieberman was like, it's a narrative film. We're not doing a documentary here. We have to do what serves cinema. when it starts telling a story on the big screen that's riveting, compelling, emotionally moving to a certain degree, you got to create something that is interesting and exciting for the audience to watch. So they weren't going to be adhered to the letter of the accounts that were put down in the Walton Experience book. And of course, like I said, Travis Walton himself, he's gone on record many, many times. He kind of wants to do a remake of this where it's like more adhered to what he says happened. And that hasn't gone anywhere in all these different years, but who knows, maybe one day somewhere, someone will give them the money and they'll do that version. But until then, it's like, even though the film didn't make money, it's like it's maintained a cult following. I think it's actually steadily grown. I think it still gets cycled back into the conversation about science fiction films and the good stuff that happened in that regard, because the 90s, like I said, begin this whole thing, started to become a hotbed of like science fiction, because you already had like Terminator 2, obviously with Robert Patrick, but then you get stuff like the X-Files and Sliders and Babylon 5 and all the Star Trek series. You got a lot of other stuff that got later on this in the decade. You got like Independence Day, Men in Black, and all these different things, Stargate. It's like it was like a big hotbed for science fiction stuff on TV and film, all this type of stuff. So it's like, it's a good thing. It's like, again, as this film gets released, you got Chris Carter developing the X-Files, and a couple months later it premieres and like taps into that alien abduction, paranoia, all that conspiracy theory type of stuff, and keeps going on. And of course, Robert Patrick joins the series in the 8th season, a season after Robert Lieberman actually directed the episode Rush in season 7, so did not get to reunite and work on the X-Files, but it was kind of a nice thing that he actually, the actor and the director actually did cycle into the series at a certain point in time. But it's such a great thing, just like have that film there. You got all these other things going on through the rest of the decade, dealing with that type of stuff. So I was like, it just still, even though it didn't do as much business theatrically, I think just like it probably hit on HBO and Cinemax and stuff like that, hit on the video rentals and the DVDs, all that type of stuff. So I'm glad finally the film is definitely getting that recognition for what it was. A very good film with great performance in the whole thing. A terrifying effects sequence that, like, so much the effects guys, like, their thing was like, we want to be invisible. We don't want to stand out. It's like, oh, here's an effect. Here's an effect that kind of to leer on and kind of like observe and stuff like that. They want to have everything serve the story. Don't get distracted by the effects. Being enveloped in the story so much is like, that's so goddamn good. I love that mentality, that sensibility of filmmaking in general, from anyone involved with filmmaking. Do the stuff that serves the narrative. Don't draw attention away from the narrative. Make the actors and the filmmaking qualities all serve a single purpose. And move the story forward and connect with the characters and be driven by the emotion of the story. All these different things. Everyone worked on the same levels here. All the same wavelengths. All these different qualities. Like, it just came off so very well. Just like, I love this film. It's perfect. It never loses its potency with me. Everything I've thought about this film since day one still holds up because everyone's so goddamn good in it. Every quality is so damn good. Some people might feel like the ending's a little on the lukewarm side in a certain way after you get the terrifying sequence. Then it's like dealing with the pen mending of the emotional ways of Mike and Travis and stuff like that. Even D.B. Sweeney kind of felt like, we wanted to have like an extra stinger at the end, something. Maybe a shooting star in the sky that has the characters kind of think twice about something. Just a little, you wanted to add just a tad bit more of that mystique back into the film at the end, but they felt like they wanted to end the beat on the human element to kind of have the tanks crawl where everyone's been at this point in time. Certainly, Travis Walton has hit up on the lie detector test many, many times. Sometimes he holds up. Sometimes he has not. And a lot of people, there's been speculation and criticism and things picked apart a billion times with his story and everyone else's story in the whole thing. So you can believe what you want to believe, or you can just sit down and watch the film and enjoy it because it's such a magnificent piece of work. And so you guys, I'd just love to hear what you guys have to feel about it. Like I said, there's a new Screen Factory version that has a brand new 4K transfer on it, but doesn't port over all the features from the Australian region-free imprint films Blu-ray, which also had a feature-length commentary that got cut down to a small featurette on the Screen Factory version. And the imprint films version also has a full featurette with the ILM guys who worked on the film, discussing how they did all the type of stuff. Definitely recommend to get those features, but the new scan looks absolutely fantastic. Definitely recommend it any which way you want to roll with it. You're golden regardless. So guys, Thanks so very much for watching. This has been a very long time. I reviewed this film back in 2013. It's one of my earliest reviews on the channel here, but I've been eager for so very long to redo that entire thing. It's a much longer form thing, and much more in depth. And so these new Blu-rays just gave me all the juice I needed to really delve into that and really give it the best view possible, because it really deserves that entire type of attention and that love and just like very good respect overall. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.